we're going to be talking Mac streaming specs, everything you need to know. We're going to be talking about recommended specs for live streaming on a Mac with Ecamm Live. We're going to talk about if your existing computer will even work for live streaming. Is it too old? Is it too not powerful? What's more important, GPU, CPU, RAM? We've got all the questions that you ask us constantly, and Glen from Ecamm is here to share all of those nitty-gritty details. Thank you, Glen, for being here.
Let's do it. Yeah.
All right. So this is Go Live Now. It's a show that actually I'm from Live Streaming Pros, and I do it in conjunction and partnership with Ecamm. They are my favorite Mac streaming software, which is why I partnered with them. And so this is Go Live Now, and I would highly, highly recommend that if you have questions about the setup that I use, you can head on over to livestreamingpros.com/GLN. Okay, so Glen, first and foremost, a better intro for you. You are the co-creator of Ecamm Live and a bunch of other software that you guys make.
That's right. Ken and I created Ecamm Live probably about 3 years ago, right? And
has it been 3 years? Wow.
I feel like it has been that long, or even longer.
Yeah.
Version 1.0 back in the day.
Sounds about right.
And the specs question is something that's been coming up more often recently, and I think we're just talking about this recently. And because when we first designed Ecamm Live, we designed it to work on any Mac, and we told our customers, who would ask, "What Mac do you need?" We would say, "Well, any Mac that was made after 2010 should be fine, because that's enough to stream, and the Mac has a chip in it called a hardware encoder, which will handle the encoding of video automatically, so you don't have to use your CPU for doing that." Yeah. It's the same chip that's in an iPhone or an iPad, also in a Mac, and Ecamm Live uses this hardware accelerated video encoding to do its encoding. So you really don't need to worry about your CPU or anything when you're talking about using this hardware accelerated encoding. So that's what we always said all along is, whatever Mac you want. But as the program started to get more feature rich, and people started to do more and more things with it, that gradually changed. So now what we need to really ask is, what are you planning to do with Ecamm Live?
Yeah.
Are you, if you're just going to have a one camera setup, or or maybe you're rolling some pre-recorded videos, and you have a mic connected, or you're putting some titles on the screen. That is all. Any computer is absolutely fine. Any Mac that was made after 2010 is going to have a hardware encoder. It's going to have all of the speed you need for doing a basic live broadcast. Okay. But let's talk about the things that you can start adding to the broadcast that might require a little more processing power, right? Yeah. So what's one thing that people might want to do, Luria, that in a live stream?
Comments on screen, overlay pips like this, animations like we were seeing me do earlier. Interviews is a big thing.
Bringing on a guest is a big one.
Yeah. And people don't realize that interviews are one of the most intense and complicated and advanced, really, things that you can do with live streaming. So it takes a lot more from all sides for your interviews. Other things, playing videos, sharing your screen, all of that good stuff.
Yeah, playing videos is typically not as intensive. Sharing your screen does use a fair amount of processing power as well. So that is something that and especially if you are sharing some other app. So say the whole point of your live stream is to demo. You're going to be demoing some other multimedia app.
Yeah.
Right. Or like maybe you're doing a Premiere demo or a Final Cut demo, or a music app demo. That's a situation where you want to make sure that you have a Mac with extra processing power, because you're running two apps at the same time, and you're running the screen sharing system. So that is going to be not something you want to do on a basic Mac.
Okay. And
So
so Nika is saying in the comments, okay, so what you're telling me and what they're hearing, and so let's clarify this, is what you're saying is that if I want a simple production, camera only and a mic, then I can do it with pretty much any Mac that I have, correct?
yeah, and I mean, since we're talking about Macs here, we can really break this down pretty specifically, right? Because
Okay.
there really aren't a whole lot of different kinds of Macs.
Yeah.
You have what we see falls into a couple different categories. Starting at the very bottom, there are, let's see, I can go even further back. Okay, so getting a little more into detail here. Apple makes a product called a Mac Pro. You can live your whole life with never having heard of a Mac Pro because they really are for something that was invented for pro users. Way back in the day, you had the Mac Pros, which basically look like an old 1990s computer. They sit on the floor. They have no monitor. They're just a big rectangle, right? They called it the cheese grater because it had these holes on the side that kind of made it look like a cheese grater. Apple then came up with another Mac Pro, which people call the trash can.
Yep.
Because it looks like a little trash
can. It does.
And then the new, so the Mac Pro came out 2010, I want to say, and then the trash can or the coffee can or whatever came out in 2013.
Yeah.
Now these Macs unfortunately do not have hardware accelerated video encoding.
And what does hardware accelerated video encoding mean to somebody who doesn't know what that is?
What this means is, rather than offloading your encoding to a special chip that does nothing but encode video, you're using your Mac's processor to do it instead. Which means if something else is happening on your computer, like a Skype call, for example, Ecamm Live may not be able to encode in real time. And real time is very important for a live stream, right?
Yeah.
So you can think of it like say you are you're editing a movie, and then you're done with the movie and you press export in your movie in iMovie, say, and you get a little progress bar going across the screen. Mm-hmm. Now it's saving your movie. Live streaming is essentially saving the movie all the time, and it needs to happen real time.
Yeah.
So that progress bar needs to be moving at the same speed as a movie goes. I guess that's a good way to describe it.
No, that's a great way. Yeah.
Like if it's taking a minute to encode a minute of video, you're good. If it's taking 2 minutes to encode a minute of video, you can't stream. You need to be encoding faster than a video goes. So when you don't have that chip, or you don't have if you have a computer from 2013 that can't encode video fast enough, or maybe it can, but then you open some other app and that's also needing the CPU, you're going to run into trouble.
Yeah.
So short version of that story, we do not handle Mac Pros very well.
Okay.
In fact, if you have a Mac Pro, I would recommend just not using it for live streaming.
And that would go against what most people would think of, because Mac Pros are supposed to be the top of the line.
Yeah. But they're also from 2013. Right. So we have customers that use the Mac Pros, and in their mind they just got the thing, even though it was probably like 5 years ago, and they just bought the fastest computer on earth.
Yeah.
Why can't it?
Right.
This thing is a beast.
And this is what causes everybody to hit their heads against the wall, and that's why we're having this conversation.
Yeah, but I mean, this phone can encode video faster than a Mac Pro.
Yeah.
Because it has that special chip in it to encode video.
Okay.
Where a Mac Pro just doesn't.
So do all of the newer Macs have that accelerated?
Yeah.
Okay.
Every Mac built after 2010 has hardware accelerated video encoding, except for the Mac Pros.
Okay.
That's an important thing to note, that if you're on a Mac Pro and it's overloaded, you're going to get an error message saying, it's just not cutting it.
Okay. So then if we look at from 2010 on, if I bought a computer, let's say I bought a laptop 2012 and 2013. I see a lot of people who have those that kind of come up with these questions of why won't it work or will it work? So if I bought a laptop in 2012, 2013, somewhere around there, it's maybe a 13-inch. Is it going to work?
It will work, yeah. Yeah,
But
we have a lot of members on these older Macs, but that's where you start getting into the question of what else are you adding in?
yeah,
So if you have one of these older Macs, or sometimes it's a MacBook Air, which is very sort of like a lightweight Mac.
yeah,
And also the older computers could go all the way up to, top of the line MacBook Pro from 2014, for example, or even up to 2015. They're great computers, but when you start adding in cameras or running screen sharing or a Skype call, you'll start to see a couple different things possibly happen. You could see everything just kind of start to slow down. And this usually means that the graphics card is getting low on resources.
yeah. And you by slow down, you're gonna see this kind of thing happen, right?
Yeah, so it's not necessarily, well, you might see frames dropping. So people might not be moving as smoothly as they want. Or you might see, it's another thing you might see. You typically won't get your stream stopped, and run into some sort of an error that would cause your stream to stop. But you'll see reduced performance. You'll see the frame rate is not as high if it's getting overloaded. And a common situation is there are 7 cameras running.
Yes.
Or even virtual cameras, because what Ecamm Live will do is it will automatically run all the cameras that are connected. So if it sees cameras connected, it will assume, well, these are this person's live. We want to run all these cameras because if you want to start switching between the cameras, they should all be running,
yeah.
right? So if you look down in your camera switcher, you might see any connected camera is running, but you might also see virtual cameras like eyeglasses or SnapCam or Cam Twist or Camtasia or ManyCam. There's so many of these things, and I think by default Ecamm Live, if it sees certain ones of these, it won't run them up. It won't add them to the switcher because it'll just be we don't want to just run Cam Twist on everyone's computer that has Cam Twist. So, but other ones may end up in the switcher. So you want to make sure that you're not running a bunch of these virtual cameras unnecessarily.
Okay.
And if you're not using your built-in camera, you may just want to disable it. We have a checkbox now in the settings to say, you know what, I'm never going to need my built-in camera. Just turn the thing off.
I love that.
Yeah, or there's if you look in the camera menu, there's an include in switcher submenu, so you can say, I know these cameras are connected, but don't run them all the time.
Yeah.
Take them out of that live camera switcher, and that's going to free up a lot of resources that might be going to other things.
And I'll just say I'm paying attention to the comments, guys, and the questions that you have. We are going to tackle Q&A here in just a minute, but if I see some themes, we'll definitely bring that into this conversation. What he's talking about is, really, really important. I know that sometimes it feels a little overwhelming, all of these terms that you may not fully understand, but if you start to see things like, what Glen was describing, like dropped frames, it slows down, things like what we were experiencing before the show really started. I actually had all kinds of things planned for today's show in terms of assets, switching cameras, and you'll notice I'm actually just keeping it really super simple right now because my own computer has started to struggle over the last week with some things. So I must have done something. And this is the kind of thing that you have to get in your own brain space and your own mindset is if things start going wrong, you can bring it down to that super simple production that Glen was talking about and make it just as simple as possible. Kill the animations, kill all the cameras, you don't need to do all of the things in order to get the good content out there. So don't get frustrated when things go wrong. Just roll with the flow and know that what we're giving you here is a framework to understand how much you can do with the computer that you have. So Glenn, what I would love for you to do is kind of break down like, okay, for if you do want to do all of the fancy stuff, and you want to have those 7 cameras, and you want to have animations, and you want to share your screen and all of the things, what kind, like, do I need to be going to the top of the line, brand new 2020 models, 2019 models, whatever the last one was that Apple released, or, you know, like, what are the actual specs that I need to look for?
Well, we've always said, you know, Apple's products can be pretty pricey, and as you spec them out, they get a lot more pricey as you start adding things. Newer is always better. We like to say, get a new Mac, but you don't necessarily have to spec it out. So the important thing is have a recent iMac, you know, an iMac that was made within the past couple of years, or a MacBook Pro that was made in the past couple of years. It doesn't have to have maxed out RAM. It doesn't have to have the fanciest video card with the most GPU you can possibly get, because that's just going to make it cost an absolute fortune.
It will.
You go on like Apple's computer building tool and you start like punching in all the different things you're going to get.
You're like, how much am I going to spend? What?
Like, do I want a car or do I want a new MacBook Pro?
Exactly.
But if you're getting like the 2019 16-inch MacBook Pro, that thing, even the base model, is really powerful, and it's a pro computer. And the same thing goes for the iMac. You know, if you're planning on doing things like video editing or live streaming with another app running at the same time, sure, increase the RAM. Maybe go from the base RAM level to the next level up, for example. But as far as the video card goes, the video card that's in these things is pretty good, the base model. You can start adding...
and you're saying in these things, meaning the MacBook Pro or the iMac?
Yeah, the iMac... The best things for live streaming are the 16-inch MacBook Pro that Apple's selling right now, or really any of the current iMacs. You're not going to run into any performance problems on the current iMacs, unless there's some issue with the apps that you're running and they're consuming more resources than they should be. You shouldn't be running into any issues. Some computers that we do see performance issues with are MacBook Airs, which just tend to have they have graphics cards that are integrated with the processor, and they're just not very powerful computers.
Right.
They don't like to run more than one graphics intensive app at the same time, and we do not recommend using a MacBook Air for a production that's sort of above and beyond the basic setup. Also, we wouldn't recommend having multiple cameras on a MacBook Air either.
Definitely. Yeah. Okay, so you were kind of starting to say if you're going to upgrade, you can go for the base level of MacBook or MacBook Pro or an iMac, but if you're going to upgrade something, you said upgrade RAM. Is that the most important between the CPU, the GPU, and the RAM in order to upgrade? That's what you should focus on the most?
That's almost like an in general thing, not even necessarily for Ecamm Live. Ecamm Live doesn't use a lot of RAM. The only thing that we might be using RAM for is we do a lot of caching of things. Yeah. So say you have a production with a lot of different scenes, and those scenes all have different assets in them. As you switch through those scenes, we'd basically be keeping all of those things in RAM. So if you watch the RAM usage of Ecamm Live, as you switch through scenes, you'll see the RAM go up a little bit each time you switch to a new scene that you haven't been to before, and it's not going to let go of that memory, because it's saying, oh, this person might come back to this scene. I want to have everything ready to go, and that is already stored in RAM. But if you look at Ecamm Live's RAM usage in general, you'll notice it's quite low. It's really just kind of the same RAM usage you'd see for like Microsoft Word or something like that. But if you are producing video and doing some editing, doing some any sort of video production, you want to increase your RAM just so that you don't run into a situation where all the apps on your computer have used up all the RAM.
Yeah. And
now,
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, just so continuing down that path, so that's RAM, and then GPU and CPU. Those are pretty darn important. But you said graphics card, it's kind of good to go. And by the way, we should explain, what CPU is, what GPU is, break that down for everybody, and then kind of continue down the path of how much do we really need? Should we upgrade those?
Yeah, so the CPU, the central processor in your computer, is just in charge of doing everything. So if you open up Activity Monitor on your computer, there's a CPU section. You can see that each app that's running on your Mac is using a certain percentage of that CPU. And if you stare at it for long enough, you'll say, wait a minute, it's way more than 100% here. Like, shouldn't that add up to 100%? And the reason why that's going to be much higher than 100% total is because the CPU has individual cores. So there's really more than one processor in a CPU nowadays. So that's going to add up actually to like 800% if you look at all that usage. And that is basically almost everything that's happening on your computer is happening on the CPU, and all your apps are sharing that one processing chip.
Okay.
Now, the exception to that is things that are happening on the GPU, which is the graphics processor. When Ecamm Live is, say, pulling in some video from your camera, grabbing some overlays, rendering a frame of video, and sending it to the encoder, that's all happening on the graphics processor. So that's why you'll notice if you just open Ecamm Live and it's running a camera or maybe recording a video, it's actually not using a lot of processing power on the CPU because a lot of that is offloaded to the graphics processor. But it's still very important because there still are a lot of things that will happen on the CPU. There are things like the screen sharing, things like running a cam link or some sort of a encoder card. That decode that's happening from the encoder card is going to be happening on the CPU. So, or say you connected a Canon camera or a Sony camera or a Nikon through USB. If you look in Activity Monitor, you'll see a huge increase in CPU usage as it's essentially it's the equivalent of opening 30 JPEGs every second.
Okay.
And that's getting, those images are getting decoded on the processing, the CPU.
Okay.
So another way to describe it is all the basic things that are happening in Ecamm Live are happening on the graphics processor. Certain things that you may add in may increase CPU usage, and then you'll start seeing that competition with other apps.
Okay.
As you add it in.
Okay. So if you were to do a simple production and you were going to buy a Mac right now, and it's super simple, like the camera and the mic and let's say screen share, because that's super common, right? So like you're going to do a screen share, which does add a little bit of a task to, or what you're asking the computer to do and Ecamm to do. If you're just doing the camera, the mic, and a screen share, what specs would you get?
I would go for these amazing 16-inch MacBook Pros.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I know you want me to say that like there's like a lower end and a higher end and like get this if you're this. They're amazing computers. They're beautiful. They're powerful. The battery lasts forever. They are nice and thin. Apple has finally, after several years, fixed the keyboard on these things. They're just absolutely wonderful computers. I would not hesitate to get a 16-inch MacBook Pro.
Okay.
If you feel like that is just not in your price range, or you are someone who prefers a 13-inch screen, I would recommend Apple's 13-inch line of MacBooks.
Okay.
I think they're still called MacBook Pros, right?
I think so. Yeah. Yeah, they are.
Pro. Yeah, but I think they're all dated 2019. I want to say. big.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I would recommend
Okay.
for all of our users. I would say stay away from MacBook Air unless uh, unless you're just doing the absolute basics. Anything above that, go for the MacBook Pro series.
Okay. And now within those series, there are, there's a low and a high. Do you care? I mean, like, are we looking at 16 gig RAM, 32, 64?
I would, as far as speccing it out, like I said before, I would go to the 16 gigabytes
Okay.
of RAM. Really not seeing any necessity for higher RAM than 16 gigabytes.
Okay.
So I want to make sure that you're adding in a little bit of RAM.
Okay.
And it's also going to ask you what graphics card you want. I personally don't think it's necessary to upgrade to the top of the line graphics card. We don't see a lot of difference
Okay.
really with that. This is getting into a little bit more of the technical detail, but
I think they're wanting it, so they're asking for it.
the MacBook Pro series of computers, going back all the way to the very beginning, have 2 graphics cards in them. And they're referred to by Apple as the integrated graphics card and the discrete graphics card. So, and the operating system will switch back and forth between using them depending on what apps you have open. So, when it's asking you what graphics card do you want to put in this MacBook Pro, it's referring to this discrete graphics card. Now they're made by Radeon, and they'll really let you pay anything you want for these things, all the way up to the absolute top of the line graphics card, which is going to add, I think, a few $1,000s to the price of the MacBook Pro. I really don't see a huge reason to install one of these things. I mean, just by virtue of getting the MacBook Pro and getting that discrete graphics card versus the integrated, you're going to see a huge boost automatically just having a MacBook Pro with one of these Radeon discrete graphics cards in it.
Okay.
And they're so you're definitely going to have a discrete graphics card. You just may not have the absolute top of the line one in there.
Another question that's coming up often is i7 or i9 processor?
They're both fine.
All right, so if you can afford
Seriously,
the i9, go for it. If not, then the i7 should do you fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
Get the nicest Mac that is in your price range, and you won't be disappointed getting a new computer.
Okay. And then let's dive a little bit deeper even into some of the details as you're thinking about these upgrades and all of this. And by the way, we are going to talk about future-proofing yourself as well. Like, I think that's an important topic to discuss, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the default iMacs don't actually come with SSD. It's something you have to configure. You want to talk about that a little bit and whether you should configure it to the SSD or not?
That's really interesting. Yeah, I don't think I realized that that they still ship the spinning disk style hard drive. So you can still get that in the iMac.
That is what my team was telling me before the show. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I would absolutely go to SSD.
Yeah.
I mean, if you still have a Mac with a magnetic disk in it, meaning like the conventional hard disk where there's spinning platters rotating at a high speed and a little head going, and you hear that noise when it's. I mean, once you go to SSD, you'll never go back. It's just like
it's
totally a new world. It's just the speed of the disk is night and day, and you also, of course, don't get that. And a lot of the iMacs have what's called a fusion drive.
Yeah.
Which is just to confuse people even more, really is what that's for. And that's kind of a hybrid, like when you buy a bike that's not good for roads or trails, it's just kind of like a hybrid bike in between. A fusion drive has a little bit of SSD, I guess, for files that are accessed commonly. And then things are offloaded from the SSD to the magnetic drive kind of based on some sort of caching scheme. That's really not going to get you very far when you're doing something like recording video. The SSD is the way you want to go.
Okay.
I mean, you'll never look back. That's not an upgrade I would hesitate on at all.
Okay. A couple of other things that Paul on my team is telling me. The base level 21 inch has the old hard drive. Most of the others have the Fusion that you were just talking about. So I guess that's the base level 21 inch that has that specific one, that old hard drive. And then he also mentioned that the 27 inch is one of the few Macs that you can easily add more RAM to. So like if you're going to do it yourself. So that's an option as well. A few questions that are coming through that I think are really important to tackle are Mac Minis. Are you seeing anybody having good success with Mac Minis?
The newer Mac Minis are pretty good.
Okay.
There's a whole bunch of older Mac Minis out there.
Yeah.
Which
I have two of them if anybody wants one, but
the older Mac Minis are underpowered.
Yeah.
They're just really not up to the task.
Right.
They have a lot of what we see is they have no built-in mic and camera, obviously, because they're just like a little rectangle. So you need to make sure you have a mic, a good camera, and they'll work. And they're not a super uncommon device to be used with Ecamm Live, but they do tend to be underpowered. The newer ones are much nicer specs.
Okay.
But I don't know if there's like a whole lot of point in getting a Mac Mini, right? I mean,
there are several people who I still hear want the Mac Minis. I mean, it's a little less expensive, right? And then, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go that direction myself, but yeah. I do see people wanting to.
Yeah, and then people adding. We see a lot of members that have several displays connected.
Yeah.
So say you want to have you want to be at like a big command center with like the 3 displays all the way across.
I've got 3 here.
Then that is actually a situation where you would want to splurge on the fancy graphics card.
Okay.
Because one of the main things that your graphics card is doing is running your displays. And if you have 3 or if you have a giant display, that is a caveat to what I said earlier, where if you are a display aficionado and you have tons and tons of displays connected, that is an example of where you'd want to max out and get the top of the line Radeon 7 million graphics card on your MacBook Pro, for sure. Because that's really what takes a lot of that graphics card activity, for sure.
I don't think you just mentioned this, but what about eGPUs? What are they? Should we use them?
We get a fair number of questions about eGPUs, which are essentially an external GPU that you can add to your Mac. They usually connect nowadays with a Thunderbolt plug, and you plug this thing in, and nothing happens. It's very anticlimactic.
It's like, wait, what just happened?
It's like you get this big box and you plug in, and you're like, okay. But when you look in the Finder and you get info on an app, you'll see a little checkbox where you can say, you can tell the app, use the eGPU instead, and that's exactly what it will do. It will, when that app starts a graphics session, it can, instead of using the GPU that's built into your Mac, it will use the graphics processor in this big external box, and you will get better graphics performance. So a common reason for eGPUs is if you have a gigantic display, or you have several gigantic displays, and then you'll see that you're getting much better performance.
Okay.
As far as Ecamm Live with an eGPU, I think Ken recently put an article up on our sports site about this, where the basic, sort of the consensus is, no, it's really not going to get you a huge increase in Ecamm Live performance.
Yeah. And by the way, that link is in the description for everybody.
There is a common idea, and even this was confusing us for a while too, that the video encoding happens on the GPU.
Right.
And that, it turns out, is just in the case of Ecamm Live at least, is not the case. Your video encoding is happening on that special chip that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the hardware encoder. That is not part of the GPU.
Okay.
That's something your computer basically has or not. There's no way to upgrade your Mac to have a hardware encoder chip in it. And an eGPU is not going to make a difference there.
Okay, so if you don't have an accelerated, the whole phrase was accelerated graphics card, essentially, or that chip, then you kind of are screwed, just to put it bluntly.
Essentially, Ecamm Live is designed to work with the hardware encoder.
Okay, perfect.
There are other apps that aren't. A lot of cross-platform apps use, they're always encoding on the CPU. Okay. Like if you fire up OBS, for example, you have the option, but by default, it's going to be encoding on the CPU.
Yeah.
And you'll immediately realize your fan is spinning up and going crazy, and Ecamm Live can avoid that by using the hardware-based encoder.
Okay.
But since we designed it to use the hardware-based encoder, it's gonna, if it doesn't have that, we still let you open the program on a Mac Pro because we're nice. But you may just run into performance issues pretty quickly.
Okay. And since you mentioned fans, that is something that a lot of people talk about constantly, is that their fan starts running. Explain what's happening when the fan runs and what you should do about it when it does.
It's all about temperature. The processor has a thermometer in it, and when it starts to get hot, it will adjust your fan speed accordingly to keep your computer from melting. And what we've seen is really interesting. Older computers actually can lose their ability to be thermally efficient. There's actually like a paste on the processor itself that's supposed to sort of exude heat from the processor into the heat sinks, into the fan. And we've found that actually once a computer starts to get a couple years old, the fan actually will run more because you're not getting that. It's not as efficient thermally as it used to be, unfortunately. And there really isn't a way to fix that. The most common situation we see with this is the 2015 MacBook Pros.
Okay.
I'm sure a lot of people are watching this on a 2015 MacBook Pro.
Yeah.
They're extraordinarily common. It's actually, I had one for several years. What we found with it is these things can really heat up, especially when you are running Ecamm Live and Skype at the same time. You'll see this heating up situation, and if the fan is running and it's not cooling down, the way the computer deals with that is by throttling the processor speed, and that is good for nobody. But it will actually say, okay, I'm really melting. I'm going to reduce the actual clock speed of your processor. I'm sorry, but that's what I'm going to do. And so if it seems like your 2015 MacBook Pro is not running as well as it used to, it's probably not your imagination.
Yeah.
It's probably literally just not running as well because of the thermal paste on your processor. It's crazy to think about that kind of thing happening, but it's a real thing.
And while you can't do anything about the thermal paste, you can do a few things. One, simplify your production so that it's not, trying to do too much as your computer gets older. It's like a dog, right? As your dog gets older, it can do less and less. Would you not agree with that? It's a bad analogy. He's thinking about it. I guess we'll just move on from that one. I don't think I got his approval. But yeah, I guess. But you can also raise, like they sell things that you can raise your laptop up off of the desk so that it has a little bit more cooling effect, airflow through the underneath of your computer, but it's not going to make a massive difference.
Like we get more questions about the fan in the summer.
Go figure.
Like I said, it's a temperature thing. I mean, like we'll get someone saying, my fan sounds like a jet landing on an aircraft carrier, and we'll be like, well,
Yes.
how hot is it in your room? Like,
Right.
is it actually, is it 90 something degrees in your room? That temperature is not going to circulate if it's actually like pulling in hot air.
Yeah.
But in general, the reason you'll see that heating up to begin with is if your it's usually can be traced down to a particular thing that's happening on your Mac.
Okay.
And if you're not sure why, like in general, like if you just open Ecamm Live and it's running a camera and you're streaming, you generally shouldn't be running into an issue like that.
But you should check for background syncing like Dropbox or Google Drive. You should make sure that you're keeping your computer clean. Like get all of the files off your computer. Get all of the apps that you're not using off your compuder. Store files in the cloud,
Yeah.
but don't sync while you're live. I mean, these are all things that factor.
To that point, I would say there's a couple things that I don't feel help at all.
Okay.
That are kind of like placebos almost. A Mac with a lot of files on it is just not going to cause performance problems.
Okay.
That is, it's something where those files are just, they're just sitting there and they're not causing any trouble. There isn't a need to clear files off your computer to get better performance, unless your hard drive is filling up.
Right.
And if you don't have a lot of free space on your drive, that's a great reason to clean some stuff up for sure. But in general, a sort of a cluttery disk maybe cause performance problems in the old days, but now is file systems are done right, and that's not going to cause an issue.
Okay.
Another thing that we recommend against is Mac cleaner apps.
Oh.
I should say we don't recommend against them. We just say they don't do anything.
Okay.
They're just taking your money and selling you something that's going to do a few things: delete files off your computer, some of them which you may have needed, and there really isn't anything these Mac cleaning programs are doing that are going to improve performance, I guess is the way to put it. They are certainly cleaning off your Mac. But as far as seeking out performance, there isn't anything in particular that they are doing that's going to make your computer run faster.
Okay, good to know. Now, let me clear this one up, because this is a big thing around me, and I tend to have a messy desktop because like I save all the files to my desktop. I never look at my desktop, and I get in trouble around here with my team that's going to cause performance issues because it is on the desktop and not like filed away into like documents or anything like that. Is there truth to that? Should I keep my desktop clean?
I don't know if that's still a thing, actually.
Okay.
It definitely used to be.
It used to be, but
I
wasn't
if you think
sure.
about it, like, it's basically like just something that's on your screen that's always there that the computer has to deal with at all times. If you had 1,000 icons on your screen, your Windows server is just going to always be handling the fact that you have thousands of icons on your screen.
Yeah.
I actually don't know if that's still a thing.
Okay.
Or what Apple has fixed that or not.
Okay, fair enough.
But there's an easy way to deal with that. Make a new folder, select all, just drag everything in there, and you'll never be able to find another one of your files again.
Right.
But but at least your desktop will be clean. I honestly don't know whether that's still something that causes performance issues.
Fair enough. So I'm actually going to address a question that just came through from Chris Campbell. Why are we talking about Mac cleanup when I thought this was about streaming? The reason, do you want to answer that, Glenn?
The reason I brought up the Mac cleanup is because we have so many users who run these Mac cleaning tools, and I'm just like, oh my god, another Mac cleaning tool.
Yeah. But also because there are certain things that you do in your computer in your general world outside of streaming that will affect the streaming quality, and so it all ties in together. So honestly, he's saying that Mac cleanup programs do not work, but in terms of making sure you're keeping your hard drive free, making sure you don't have that background syncing going on. All of those things will actually affect your streaming performance. So it's actually really important to talk about and to be aware of. Yeah.
Background streaming is interesting. I mean, I've got caught in this myself where I use an online backup tool, and I've noticed like I'm trying to do a live stream and it's uploading, all my photos from last week up onto the cloud. So
you don't
definitely
want
something
it
to be aware of.
for sure. Okay, so one other question. I think we've tackled most of the questions that are coming through, but we're going to go to Q&A here in a second. But one thing I did see a couple of people ask as we were talking was OS. Do you recommend with Ecamm Live, using the latest OS, updating every time there is one, not updating for a while until there's like any bugs seen? Like, what are your suggestions there?
Catalina is great. The latest Mac OS 10.15 is a great OS. We see people running 10.13 and 10.14 effectively as well. They are a little crashier. Like we get analytics for the crashes of the app, and we can see that 10.15 is the most solid, and 10.13, 10.14 not quite as good stability wise. One big thing to keep in mind though is always be patched to the latest version of your OS. So like if you got your computer and it was like at 10.15.0 and you've never installed an update, you're going to be running into big problems stability wise. Whenever an update comes out from Apple, make sure you install that because it's probably fixing a whole bunch of great stuff. Mm-hmm. The only thing I would say that to not do necessarily is when a major release comes out. Like the releases that Apple gives a name to. Like maybe the next one will be called Mac OS Cream Cheese or something like that.
Okay, there you heard it. Exclusive right here.
Yeah, so when 10.16 comes out, you want to hold off until 10.16.1.
Okay.
Never install that .0 release because those tend to be really buggy. Wait until the first fix release comes out.
Okay.
Where all of the important fixes have been made by Apple. And the most unstable releases we see in our statistics are 10.13.0, 10.14.0, 10.15.0. It's like, yeah, those were bad.
Yeah. And you also have to do work as a developer on a software that runs on a Mac. You have to do work within that software to make it work properly with these new releases, right? So it all kind of takes time.
Sometimes you have to change things.
Okay.
What's actually more work often is supporting the older Mac OSs.
Yeah.
Like we go back to 10.12.
Okay.
So we support 10.12, but guess what? Like we don't test on 10.12. We don't have like a whole lab where we test on 10.12, 10.13, 10.14. So if you want to be running what we're running, you want to be on the latest Mac OS. Even though we do go a couple versions back, most software companies will only go 2 versions back. So in other words, as soon as 10.16 would come out, they would drop support for 10.13. So they're going 2 versions back at any given time.
Okay.
We tend to traditionally go back a little further because we do have users on 10.12, less so now, less so lately, and we have a big amount of users on 10.13 as well. Okay.
I see a lot of questions coming through about like, what are we using to do this interview? Well, of course, we're using Ecamm Live, of course, which you can get your own free trial, free training tutorial, all at livestreamingpros.com/eCamm. Glen, if you joined us late, is the co-creator of Ecamm Live. And we are currently using Skype to bring him in. But the good news is you're actually working on a native integration for interviews coming out soon.
Yeah, we're adding guests, and it is super cool. The Skype feature has treated us well over the years, mm-hmm. but what we've found and what we've heard from our users is there's just too many moving parts. You're running 2 apps at the same time, and that is just a step too far for many users who are trying to do a live production, and you don't want to have to deal with having two different apps
Yeah.
with their own audio settings, their own video settings, their own um, uh, intricacies, I guess you could say. So we are adding a native guest feature where you'll just be able to send someone a link, bring them into the show. You'll have a green room where you can talk to them first, bring them in however you want, put them into your scenes, and we're loving it. We're testing it internally, and hoping it will be out soon.
I cannot wait. And I know the rest of your community cannot wait. All right. So we have a ton of questions. We're going to get down to, do you have time to keep going for a few questions?
For you, Luria, this is, wait, I didn't even mention like how excited I am to finally be on your show. This show, what is this, like episode 5 or 6? And like,
Something like that.
this is definitely my first time on the show. And I'm just loving it.
I really, really appreciate you coming on, and I love working with you and your entire team. I love the fact that you guys are so on it when it comes to updates, new features, and you're so involved in your community that it makes me so proud to be a partner with you guys and do this show with you, because I know that you take such great care of your customers, and even people who are not yet customers,
Well, after the show, we'll take a look and see what's going on with your overlays.
There we go. That was me buttering them up for a little tech help.
Yeah. And if you guys don't know what Live Streaming Pros does, I mean, this is like an amazing business that you guys have, where if you want help with your live stream, Live Streaming Pros is such an amazing resource. I mean, talk a little bit about, like, before I forget, like what your company will do for someone who wants to do a production, because it's just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, everything from a complete build out, to tech help, to anything. Yeah. To graphics, it's such an amazing service.
Thank you. So yeah, we do everything, like you said, from a DIY workshop where we teach you how to set up your streams, from the gear, from the studio perspective, so that you have a full TV quality production, push button simple. We drill down all of the pro stuff so that we make it as super simple and easy and inexpensive as possible. And then we train you on the software, like Ecamm, and on a Mac, and then vMix on a PC. And we also do, we take that concept, but we also actually do custom studio builds for people like Michael Hyatt, and who is actually going to be joining us on this show very soon, because he's made the switch from vMix to Ecamm. So look forward to that, guys. And then we're like Amy Porterfield, Pat Flynn, like all of these amazing people. So we actually go into their places and build out their entire studios. So we're glad to help you however we can. And Niani says, I need this service. Well, you can find our workshops at livestreamingpros.com/studio. That will get you everything that you need. Thank you, Glen, for asking.
Yeah, let's do some Q&A.
Yes.
I'd love to.
Awesome. Let's do it. I'm just scrolling up here. Okay. A lot of these we've already answered, so I'm going to just kind of scroll through ones. You can find, so Sammy said, which iMac is Luria using? You can find all the details about what Mac I'm using at livestreamingpros.com/GLN. Okay, so Scott wants to know, Glenn, can we run Ecamm in 2 locations? If I'm being brought in on Skype by someone running Ecamm, can I also run Ecamm on my end to add overlays?
Yeah, so I'm actually doing that now. I wanted to use, I was too lazy to stand up and plug in more cables, so I'm actually, I had my Canon connected through USB, and so I'm using Ecamm Live's virtual camera feature and to go into Skype. So I don't have any overlays up right now, but this is coming through Ecamm Live. So if I wanted to add like a picture to this, I can just drag it in. Now I need to find a good picture. Well, let me add so if I just want to add some text, so this is all coming through.
There we go.
Here's my text. And So you can add your titles, overlays, adjust your picture settings, add a green screen, all just using Ecamm Live's virtual camera feature. And this is kind of a neat thing. Luria could green screen me. If I had a green screen background, since the Skype guests just come into the app as a camera, you actually have and my skin tone looks different than yours. You can actually make those adjustments on your end too. Give me any background that I want, adjust my picture quality, my zoom, my position, all on your end as well.
Let me show you this. So brightness, I'm adding brightness there. Temperature, kind of changing up the temperature here.
Ooh, nice.
That looks better. I should have done that before. We can make them green.
No.
No, you don't like that? No, come on. We can play with saturation, make them red. We can play with all of those things. And I could add, oh no, I'm unlocked here. There we go. We could
I'm looking pretty good now.
Play with green screen too.
Yeah. So to answer your question, it's totally not. The guest only needs Skype, but if you did have Ecamm Live, you can run the virtual camera through Skype. Unfortunately, Skype's latest update doesn't even load virtual cameras.
Yeah.
We have some steps on our website to bring them back.
We talked about that last week.
But yeah, it still works fine as long as you just run those steps to restore virtual camera functionality. I guess I must have done that on this computer because it's coming right in.
I know I did over here. Now, the most important question I've seen come through, I can't remember who asked it. Who's older, Glen or Ken?
How is that important?
Just joking.
No, seriously, we're twins. That means we're the same age.
But who was born first?
But if you're asking who was actually physically born first, it's Ken.
Okay.
And he definitely has that sort of older brother thing going on, I think, for sure.
Okay, does he?
I think so.
Okay, I am still coming through Mac Mini we talked about. Does Ecamm have the ability to unload resources if they're not needed anymore? I don't quite know what Alan means by that.
You can get into situations where you are doing things that you don't really need to do. I don't think there's any way to do it automatically, but it definitely something to look for if you're running into performance issues like, do I have like a video backdrop running that I'm not even using, or do I have I think I mentioned this before, cameras that you may not be needing to be running, things plugged into your computer that you're not using.
Yeah.
Those are all things to look for.
Okay.
And all the things we have in our output menu, like virtual cam, video monitoring, audio monitoring, NDI outputs, things you might not actually need that you just kind of turned on to try and never turn them back off. Those are always things to check on as well.
Okay. One question I saw come through earlier was about the number of assets that you have loaded in. So for example, I run the Go Live Now show that we do every Thursday with Ecamm at 10 a.m. Pacific, but I also have my Live Streaming Pros show that I do every other weekday at 10 a.m. Pacific. And so I have a lot of assets loaded in 2 different folders. Is that actually bogging down the system? Is it causing more problems than it's worth? Should I remove and add?
Image and text overlays are not going to be bogging anything down. The only thing I can think of that would be adding additional resource usage is animated overlays and animated GIFs. Things that are changing with every frame are something that's going to be requiring those overlays to be re-rendered for every frame. So if they're just static resources, they're not going to be causing any performance changes at all. But if you have dynamic overlays like widgets, movies, countdowns, or GIFs, animated GIFs, which we do support, by the way. You can add an animated GIF.
Yes, I just learned that. That's awesome.
Those will, if they're displaying on the screen, will be using resources. If they're hidden, they're not going to be using any resources.
Okay. Paul Dixon, I'm talking to you right now. Paul Dixon is our amazing, magical graphic designer. I need GIFs. Like, I need to be able to do GIFs on this show, just so you know. There was also a question that came out. Can you clarify that while the latest Mac Pro would be overkill, it would work fine with Ecamm? There seems to be some confusion from earlier where you were talking about the older Mac Pros, but what about the new Mac Pro?
So the new one that just came out, like the $6,000 Mac Pro, I don't think I remembered to mention that. So there is a new Mac Pro.
2019.
Yeah, 2019. They brought back the cheese grater form factor. It actually even looks more like a cheese grater. It's almost like a homage to cheese graters. And that, I would not expect any performance issues on that. I believe it still does not have a hardware encoder, or at least it's not enabled for use. But that computer is just so darn powerful. I would be shocked if you ran into a problem with that.
Okay.
But it is, I don't even know, we should check in our stats, like if we have any users on that computer, because I don't think that's an incredibly common system.
Right.
Just so expensive.
Right. I do know of one person who did that, so, and I don't think he's had any problems, so
Oh, darn.
we can check.
Because if they did have a problem, that would be a good excuse for us to order one. So we can,
Always looking for ways to spend money, huh? So, me, Manny says me. Brett says new one works very well, although do not get the 8-core Xeon. It has dedicated graphics, accelerators, etc. And Frank, that is exactly what we're talking about with the oh no, he asked about the iMac Pro.
the iMac Pro is great
Okay.
as well. That's a really powerful computer.
Okay. Now, Nika also had a great question. We were talking about the things that you can do in your stream, share your screen, do interviews, et cetera, et cetera. She asked, what are the things that add the most trouble besides bringing on a guest? Is it like, if you were to layer them in terms of complexity or effort for your computer, like showing intro video, lower thirds, animated pips?
I think that, let's see. As you add cameras, it's just going to be linear increase in processing power. So you add one cam link, that's going to add a certain percentage of CPU. We have users who want to add like 4.
Right.
So that's going to be a linear increase as you go. If you run 4 cam links, that's going to be really tough on your processor, especially on older Macs. So that's something to be aware of. Other things you can do, let's see. Help me out here, Larry.
I didn't want to interrupt your thought process there.
That was not a thought process.
That was a blank.
That was just
okay,
blank.
Sorry. I misjudged that one. So, so interviews, would you say interviews are more resource intensive or less than adding more cameras?
It seems like running Skype and Ecamm Live is probably the most processor intensive component that you could add. And then beyond that, there's adding cameras. There's
sharing screen. That's
screen sharing will will make your fan spin up a lot of the time, because it's just like the way that we're capturing the screen is kind of inefficient.
Okay.
Where you'll notice in Ecamm Live screen sharing, it's not sharing what's actually on your screen, right? It's hiding certain things. Like you can say like, don't show my desktop icons, or by default, it's not going to show Ecamm Live in your share, right? Because you don't want to see your audience doesn't want to see your Ecamm Live controls. So it's not actually sharing your screen. It's taking a look at all the windows that are currently open on your Mac, making a big list of them, figuring out which ones you want to show, and completely re-rendering the screen with things missing from it, and then sending that out. So it can take a lot of resources.
Okay. And then video.
Where,
Oh, go ahead.
so that's why it's using a lot more resources than something like a basic screen capture app, which is just recording exactly what's already on your screen. If you want to record not quite what's on your screen, that's a lot more processor intensive.
Yeah. And this kind of goes hand in hand with Gwen Park's question that came in earlier about distributing services or, interviews, screen sharing, presentations, things like that across different computers. So
Yeah, I mean, you can run Skype on a different Mac or even a
and that should
PC.
help.
Interesting. Yeah,
Correct.
the way Skype integrated the way Skype integration works is through a technology called NDI, which is just a way to send audio and video over a network. And when you're doing a Skype call and running Ecamm Live on the same Mac, it's sending it through NDI. So it's kind of like it's a network technology, but it's kind of like the old phones we used to have in our houses, where like if you picked up two phones in the same house, you could talk to each other through. So you're not actually using like AT&T, but you're using the phone line. So NDI is kind of like sending the video through the network system to another app on your Mac. So that's how I'm coming into Ecamm Live on your computer. But since it's a network technology and it has auto discovery, if you were running the Skype call on another computer in your house or in your office, it's going to work exactly the same way. Like your guest is just going to pop right into Ecamm Live automatically, audio and video, as if it was on the same computer. You just want to make sure that you have a good network.
Yeah. And that's, I'm always scared to trust NDI fully, or anything that's not wired, so you could bring in via another capture card your other computer into Ecamm. You can do it through NDI, but do you have any reason to doubt the reliability of NDI?
Well, I think it was designed originally as a technology that would be used wired.
Yeah, I think you're right.
It wasn't. They've done a lot of work on it over the past year or so to make it handle lower bandwidth connections better. But originally it was designed for something that would be used in studios with an Ethernet connection and kind of like unlimited bandwidth. So that I think is where some of these issues come from, where like you're sending a signal, you're sending this NDI signal over Wi-Fi, everything's working great, but then when you hit start and you start streaming, then guess what? Now your Wi-Fi is also being used for streaming.
Right.
So now your Wi-Fi network, if there's a lot of people using the Wi-Fi network, you may get into a situation where it just gets overloaded.
Yeah. Okay.
Like I've actually seen this where I was using something over NDI. Ken walked into the office, opened his laptop, and my frame rate dropped.
Oh,
And I was
Ken!
just like, close your laptop. And then it went back up. So it was just like, with Wi-Fi, you just kind of never know what each person's computer is going to be doing on the network.
Yeah.
But in most cases, it works well.
Yeah.
But there are situations where if you don't have complete control over the network, Wi-Fi can do some funny things. We don't, in general, recommend everyone go out and get Ethernet, for their live streams.
Yeah.
It's generally not necessary. But hey, if you have it,
I do.
If you've got it, Ethernet, you might as well plug in, because then you're just not
really don't you don't like make a big deal out of that. I didn't realize that, because I certainly do.
It's no, we don't tell people to plug in as a general rule. We can.
I'm a little nervous right now. I'm like feeling shaky at the thought of not suggesting that.
One thing that happens to me sometimes, though, is my computer will join the wrong network.
Yeah.
And I'll start a stream, and then I'll be like, oh, I'm just on some random network. I hope this works.
Okay. Let's see. Just a couple more questions. I know there are tons of questions coming through. I'm trying to stay focused on Mac streaming specs and performance. So if you're asking general questions, join the live stream. Either one, ask in the Ecamm community, or tomorrow, every Friday, we have a live Q&A on the Live Streaming Pros channel every Tuesday and Friday. So there are options for you to get your general questions answered. Let's see. A lot of people are asking like specific to their, model. I think Glenn gave you a really good understanding of what specs you're looking for and what to prioritize. And one thing that you guys should know is you have to test your own computer. Like if you're asking, you have this particular thing, will it work? Test. Set aside some time to go live privately, add all of the assets that you're looking to do. Spend not just 5 minutes testing, but spend a couple of hours pushing your computer to just like do the things that you're asking it to do. And you'll find out really quickly if your computer can handle it. So that's a good general.
And you want to make sure that you're actually, when you're testing, that you're actually streaming.
Yes, very important. Thank you for saying that.
You can play around with Ecamm Live all day and not hit go live. And you want to make sure that you're actually streaming out to whether it's an unlisted YouTube channel that nobody can see but you, or a private group that you and your mom can see. It's just a great way to make sure everything is working as expected, whether it be your computer specs or your internet connection.
Yes. Doing
a test stream that's actually a live stream is pretty helpful.
Absolutely. One more question. When Glenn was talking about a chip for video encoding, was that the T2 chip?
It's not. I don't think it's the T2. I don't think it has a catchy name.
Oh.
I don't think Apple gave it a catchy name, but it's the. Unless I'm mistaken, I think it's just the. There is a name. Okay, it does have a name. I can't remember what it is.
Okay.
But it's part of the Intel processor that you have, and it will. It basically its only job is just encoding H.264. And AAC audio and spitting out a encoded stream. Okay. And that's just all it does all day.
Okay. Here's what I'm going to do for you guys, because I know that a lot of you are like wanting to buy computers, and this was a lot of information. So what
you don't say.
What I'm going to do, and my team is going to work on, and I'm going to hopefully, Glenn, you'll allow me to pick your brain on this as we make this happen. I didn't tell him in advance, but we're going to create a PDF that walks you through all of the details that we talked about today in an easy to like look at format, and also just kind of give you some additional guidelines, help you out from that perspective. We don't have it ready yet. I wanted to have this conversation first and then create it with all of Glenn's amazing knowledge. But we're going to work on that as quickly as humanly possible. So look forward to that, and we will let you guys know when that is available. But I think that will help you guys kind of like be okay. All of this information kind of in a one place, easy to read. Glenn.
Awesome. Yeah, that's there's a concept, right? Writing it all down.
I know. It's so hard. It's so hard. There's just so much information when you're trying to process it all. So Glenn, thank you so very much for coming on to Go Live Now and spending this time with me, and with the audience, with yourself. I know that you have a ton of projects that you're working on, new features. Anything else you want to share about what you're working on coming soon?
Oh man, it's going to be an exciting couple of months with the guest feature, with our multi-streaming feature.
Yes.
And we rigged up offline editing, so you can like make changes that people can't see right away.
Oh, good. Yes.
All sorts of fun stuff. So keep watch. If you want to get early access to these features, check out our beta group, where we post. It's just a Facebook group, and we post our betas there, and you can grab them and discuss them and tell us what's working and what's not working. The betas are usually pretty stable. Like, we know that you use them for your broadcasts. So
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah,
that's
I've
yeah.
never had a problem. Like, I didn't do it today. You just released a beta today. Just didn't have time to like deal with that. But I never have a problem. I'll update. This is not normal. Like, I don't usually recommend going live with a brand new beta, but Ecamm betas are so stable that I've just never had a problem with them.
The vast majority of the time.
But yeah, I mean, it's it's a beta,
But anyway,
so.
yeah, this has been really fun. I think we could kind of wrap it up with like um, a one sentence overview of Mac specs on Ecamm Live. So it would be kind of like MacBook Air bad, MacBook Pro and iMac newer ones are better. Mac Pro, your mileage may vary. Um, yeah, that
Okay. And Mac Pro, did you say that? Yeah.
yeah, and add some RAM, um, and and not usually any need to spec it out elaborately. And for iMac, go with SSD. And if you followed all that,
I feel like that needs to be turned. As you were saying it, it felt like a poem in progress.
yeah, I'm not a poet.
Okay, well, it was close enough. It was closer than I'd ever get, so I thought you did good. That was really helpful. Thank you for doing that. Wrapping it up with that, you guys definitely download Ecamm. We've got a free trial link at livestreamingpros.com/ecamm. I also have a full training series that I'm updating ASAP. It's like in production at the moment, so I can't wait for those new training videos to come your way. And we are here well, Glenn isn't here. Glenn is busy at his computer coding all the time, but I am here with you every Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific for Go
Right.
Live Now. Thank you, Glenn.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
Bye.